We're in the Northern Cape today, and we're in Kimberley, and this is where the State of the Province address was delivered yesterday by the Premier, Sylvia, and she's with us now to talk through that SOPA. And also we've got an audience here that's going to be asking questions, and we look forward to yours on Twitter at Morning Live SABC, hashtag TNA BizBrief, that's BIZ, at Morning Live SABC. If you'd like to ask a question of the Premier, all the MECs are here as well. So whatever your concern, issue, suggestion, solutions might be, this is an opportunity for you to get that to the Premier and her leadership in real time. Okay, let's go to our tables, and we start at table number 16, where we find Etienne Edwards. Etienne Edwards, there we go.
Thank you, Peter. You will observe, if you look at my name, everything begins with an E. My question and concern is that I should like the Department of Energy to minimize the application amounts for the IPPs, because we are the previous disadvantaged communities, and now we must have an engineering prepared document to qualify to set up mega solar energy systems. So I should like that the minds come in there from the social responsibility side to assist the people on grassroots to qualify financially. My second question...
Okay, we don't have time for a second question, unfortunately. But let's get this one answered, because I think it's one that's really, really important. If we do have time in later, we'll come back to you. But as you can see, I've got a stack. But thank you very much indeed, Mr. Edwards. Etienne, all the E's in one place, as you said. Okay, so, and it's quite an important question, I guess, because one of the things that we're excited about seeing is how renewable energy has become an important factor. You have the sun in abundance here. And I think something as much as 60% of all the IPP allocations have come through to the Northern Cape. So that being the case, great place to grow this sector. He's saying we want to be part of that, but the application process is too expensive. How can you help us?
Already we have decided to have a IPP Ndoro or summit in the province. Because it's very clear, it's obvious that it become very exclusive, especially in terms of what they require, of the requirements. So that is why we have requested the IPP office that we want them to come to the Northern Cape, and that we will set up like a summit or Ndoro kind of setup for them to be able to begin to inform in the first place our people what IPP is all about, and also to see how we can lobby and also the Small Business Development Department as well as the Department of Energy, to see how we then can make sure that we bring in SMMEs or black business into the whole IPP process, because currently it is obvious that our people are excluded because of all the requirements of the IPPs.
All right, it's a relatively new industry, and it's growing very, very quickly. Have you been able to see the impact that it's had so far?
Impact, yes, I would say, but impact you measure on different scales. But in some of the areas you have seen that at least the economy of the specific areas. For instance, I can mention it that a month ago I was in the R, and it was like the 25th of the month, and it was extremely busy. And what I've also observed in the meantime is that there is a lot of businesses that was previously not there, like Fushinis and all the services second car dealers. That is the kind, second-hand car dealers kind of things that I've seen in that area that was not previously there. So in one way or another, you begin to think, what has happened that is different? Why is it that we are seeing a change in the economic patterns in this area specifically? And then you realize that the solar projects that is around that area is definitely making a difference. So, but not the difference that we would want to see, because we would want to see people really benefiting in terms of making sure that there is small business development, that there is procurement from our small businesses and things like that. And that is all the things that we ought to address.
All right. Zamani is on table number 19. Zamani Matis.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Premier, MEC McJack, and MEC Uncle Shushu. The concern here is the issue of... The concern here is around these two sectors, your agricultural sector and the mining sector. Look, the issue of retrenchment have already started. Workers are being retrenched in the mining sector. And when you go to the agricultural sector, there is this particular excuse of a drought. Farmers are dismissing workers within the farming area. Can the Premier and the MECs just brief us around the plan, the immediate plan to rescue and secure the jobs of those workers within the mining sector and that particular agricultural sector? With the selling of the BS mine to Pietra Diamond mining, that it's already exploiting and dismissing workers within this particular region of the Francis Part. The NHI issue, it's been pilot for quite some time. Are there immediate plans for us to see that this particular project is moving forward? Thanks, Peter.
Okay, so a couple of issues. Let's start with agriculture. Uncle MEC Shushu. Look, the reality is, and he said it's an excuse, the drought is an excuse, but it is a serious issue, isn't it? And if you're not producing anything, you can't keep on pouring money into wages without support. How do you solve this equation?
Well, it is a challenge, but we do not think that farmers or commercial farmers should, as the COSATU chair has indicated, use it, because there's a lot of assistance that government is providing. I mean, when we talk about making 42 million available for drought relief, it cannot be that the farmers will not take into cognizance the importance of the retention of jobs in the sector, because this is money that is made available directly to the farmers to mitigate the impact. So we will continue to engage them. We've got a unit that looks in the department specifically at farm workers and the vulnerability of farm workers. We will have to make an assessment. As far as we know at this point, there's not been, as a result of the drought, that much of job losses in the agricultural sector, as far as we know up to this point. But we will interface with COSATU to look at specific cases where we can intervene through the kind of assistance that we're providing to farmers to ensure that we have a reduction of any retrenchments if those are actually prevalent. And therefore we think that we will continue to interface as well with the financial institutions to reschedule the debt of some of the commercial farmers. But as we've said, also for the commercial farmers, 800 of them have registered for relief. We're looking at that. If there's resources available also from National Treasury, we've just said now we've got resources available from National Department of Rural Development, an additional 19 million. If National Treasury will also probably look at the situation, we know that we've got fiscal constraints as a country, but we are also looking at the possibilities of assisting even commercial farmers. Then we believe that then there shouldn't be an excuse for job losses in the agricultural sector. The approach of provincial government is that retrenchments must not at all be on the table. We must make sure we look at all other alternatives, including in the mining sector, which MEC Jack will reflect on. For example, if I may indulge a little bit on the mining sector, I mean, a few years ago, some of the big mining houses here have declared dividends 2 or 3 times, just a few years ago. They cannot tell us now that they are such in a dire situation that they must massively retrench workers. That is not reasonable, given the history. So when there is a challenge now of a decline in commodity prices, they cannot just tell us that they are in such a state that all workers must go. When just 3 years ago, Kumba declared huge dividends to its shareholders. So those are the things that we need to robustly engage as a government that is pro-poor. We're not here just to be neutral and look at. We will definitely ensure that our communities must emerge out of this thing in a better kind of condition.
All right. Well, let me see, Jack. He mentioned a few mines, and they were doing well. They were doing very well. But things change very quickly in the mining sector. Commodity prices have shrunk. And I mean, I think Anglo is looking at losing 80,000 jobs, just one mining house. So I'm not sure that it's fair what MEC Shushu is saying, is that because you had a good time 3 years ago, you can't say 3 years later, because things can change that quickly. Is the same relief being offered to mining houses as in the agricultural sector to cushion some of these retrenchments?
Thanks, Peter. You see, MEC Shushu is correct. That is the stance of our government in the province. And what we were saying, there will be collaboration between all these other sectors, including the mining houses themselves. And those are some of the variables that will be considered. The questions of the history of profit versus the current realities that we are faced with. And those two things should be balanced. And that's why we said, as the Northern Cape government, we'll sit down, we'll talk, we'll find ways. But on a practical side, we were saying those that are already retrenched, Chair of COSATU, we have to conduct a kind of skills audit for us to look at what are the skills that we need to develop amongst themselves in order for those to be employable, or for those also to provide kind of employment through entrepreneurial activities, or forming cooperatives, or ensuring that they are in a way preparing themselves to be also main players. Using, I think if you listened well to what the Premier was saying, sometimes there's a need for education, empowerment, as well as advocacy amongst the people who are getting the severance packages, to say, how do you use what you received positively and start to be an entrepreneur instead of you just utilizing that capital by consuming it. You need to provide some of this, and that is going to assist. But also we are saying, as part of the mitigating factors, that we need to enhance our EPWP program in order to absorb some of these. But we are saying, private sector cannot stand on the periphery whilst we are faced with this. Private sector should come in, private sector should participate, including government, including themselves, including those who are affected directly and other stakeholders. And I believe we can have a solution in as far as that is concerned.
All right. Okay, let's go back to our tables. Neo Maneng's on table number 7.
Thank you, Peter, Honorable Premier, and MECs on the panel. Let me start by saying the state of the province addressed by the Premier was inspiring to us as young people. The mere fact that she started by highlighting her plans. What I want to ask is the Premier is that is there any plans this year to convene the Provincial Youth Summit, where we will assess the youth developmental strategy that is there now and discuss the current challenges that are facing young people in the province. We have already touched on the skills development for young people. That's something that we have got interest on in the province. I thank you.
Okay, Youth Summit?
Thank you, Peter. I think just before I come to what he specifically asked me, Last week, I had a meeting with the NUM Youth Forum, and they are actually planning to bring a national youth mining summit to our province. But at the moment, we were already busy. Actually, we were discussing with the young people since last year that we want to have a youth economic summit in the province. But now that we are discussing with NUM, and I think I will also have to involve Neo as the chairperson of the ANC Youth League to make sure that they also get involved in this. We are trying to make sure that we merge this youth mining summit that are coming from a national level with the summit that we have been preparing to have as a province, so that they have a broader platform and they discuss broader issues, because in the end economic issues is economic issues, and the interest of the youth is to make sure that they are the drivers of this radical economic transformation.
Okay. Let me see, just before the last break, I raised an issue about it's great to develop all these skills, but with an economy that's not moving fast enough, are we not creating high expectations? Because at the end of that skilling, there'll be no jobs waiting for them.
Look, Peter, I earlier talked about long-term planning, but I want to align that long-term planning to the definition of gross domestic product. There are three variables involved there. It's exports, imports, and expenditure. The skills are usually used at the level of expenditure, but also at the level of export. Then it means, as I'm saying, the market needs people who are skilled enough to value add some of our minerals, to value add some of our agricultural products, and that takes place within the 9-point plan of what the president said. The second point of the 9-point plan speaks to value adding in as far as minerals are concerned. And the third one speaks to value adding in as far as agricultural products are concerned. Who are the people who are supposed to be doing this exact value adding? You need skilled people. And there's no way that you can shy away from that. As much as one understands, if we are having all our plans in place and we are not going to be faced with this economic downturn forever, there's hope that 2, 3, 4 years, there's going to be an improvement. And by that time, that is the time that you are going to use your skills. That is the time that you are going to ensure these young people are the correct people to really participate in the mainstream of the economy. And that is my belief. Thank you.
Okay. Thabo Modube is on table 13. Thabo Modube.
Thank you, Peter. Honorable Premier and the MECs. Mine is going to be based on the farms. As farmers, we would like to ask the question as to what can be done to improve the dirt roads that lead to the farms. With the current drought that has hit us very hard and the economic challenges that we are having, it also affects us as farmers, very deep in the pocket, in that the farm vehicles need to be maintained, from time on again, that the roads are not very conducive. What can be done to improve the roads that are leading to the farm? We've been informed that the responsibility of maintaining those farm roads have been taken away from the district municipality to the public roads and public works. But now I have to say that maintenance on those roads have been very minimal, or rather non-existent. Is there a possibility maybe that the government can take back that responsibility back to the Francis Bar District Municipality? Because we believe that during that time they used to maintain the roads. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Norman, you want to respond?
Okay,
But maybe
Yes.
I can say that we have addressed some of the roads issues in the SOPA, and that is that we realize that the roads is an asset that we really need to maintain and to keep and to upkeep. But with regards to the issue of taking the roads back to the district municipality. I think it's a new dialogue that we must open and discuss it and see what we are going to do about
Okay.
it.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that we're working with MEC David Roy, and probably MEC David Roy could also assist in providing an appropriate response in terms of what were the reasons that compelled the Department of Public Works and Roads and Public Works to take back that function to the district. And I'm sure if there are challenges with regard to some of the areas that might not have been reached, I think that there is a plan in place for the roads that lead to the farms to be improved. But I'm sure MEC Roy can give an adequate response to the issue that has been raised.
Okay. Is MEC Roy here?
Is there?
If we can get a microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm not going to respond to the whole issue of what is the future around where must roads be located. That's a matter I'm sure the Premier said we can discuss. I want to come straight to the issue that is raised by the person involved. That I think that there's two issues here. One is that I must be saying here that maybe I need to have a deeper understanding exactly where those roads are, because there's certain proclaimed roads that the department is responsible for. There might be roads which he's speaking about that is not part of our responsibility, but our approach is at the second level, that we always talk to one another as colleagues. As my colleague said, MC Shushu, that if they can identify the areas, we will look at it, and for sure, there's no debate that if there's a need to assist, we will do that. The other matter, as I said, is a matter for discussion moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much indeed, MEC Roy. I thought this question would have come up by now because it's such an important one. Education. And, you know, this time last year, I remember we were very excited. Northern Cape improved its pass rate by almost 2 percentage points, getting to 76.4%, and that was up from 74% the year before. Fast forward 12 months, 2016 January, Basic Education Minister Motsepe says 69%. What's happened in education? You were on the rise, and you've dropped massive percentage in the last. Is it because you didn't have an MEC for education?
You want this the straight story?
Yes, straight.
The year before, that was now 2014. I don't know whether you still remember where the issue of the JTG, some of the matriculants that did not write examination. And I think that is one of the major issues that had an impact on the decline or the decrease.
So the progressing of students through the system that shouldn't have written, who were allowed to write but were not ready.
I won't say that is necessarily the case.
All right.
Because the issue of what they called, what is it, this students that have been progressed, it's not necessarily the case. It was that there was a percentage of learners that have not written the year before, that had to be brought back, and they have written now. I think that had a major impact on our matric results. But also, sometimes you find that there is programs that have been set out, and it does not necessarily materialize the way it is supposed to materialize. But I was saying to people, let us just be honest with ourselves. We need to improve on the matric results, but we need also to improve generally on the quality of education, of basic education. And that is the reason why already we started at the level of the ruling party to have discussions and are preparing to have an education summit, because I think it is what needs to be done is that all stakeholders need to come under one roof, we discuss it, and we determine the way forward as soon as possible.
One thing that I've noticed as well, particularly the Eastern Cape, is that for those parents that can, they're starting to move towards the Western Cape because they're getting better results. So some of your students, parents, are saying, for a better chance for my kid, I'm going to go to the Western Cape. Is that something you're experiencing in the Northern Cape as well?
We are really not experiencing that. What we are experiencing is that we don't have enough space for all the learners that are brought into our schools.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's go to table number 6, where we'll find Regina, is that Berego? Yeah.
Bamba, goeiemôre almal. My vraag gaan stryd na die premier toe. Ek het gister hier aandagtig geluister na die SOPA toespraak. En ek wil weet, want ek sien in die en gemeenskappe alles het tot stilstand gekom. Ek wil weet, is daar ontwikkelingsplanne in die en gemeenskappe? Dankie.
Okay, all right. So for those of us who are not great with Afrikaans, and it's a major language in this part of the country, our speaker there said she was listening to the SOPA, and she's concerned about the indigenous languages of this province, the Kwe and the Ku. Right. So is there a provision to support and make sure that these languages get the, yeah.
I don't know whether the issue was on language per se, because they've got a high school in Platfontein, and there is a provision for them to be able to use their own languages. Platfontein issues are very complicated. But safe to say, I was in Platfontein in January, and we had a discussion, but we actually went there for a project that was actually driven by the Swiss government, and it was actually something that is very enlightening. I can say that the challenge in Platfontein is that Ku and Kwe, they are not actually really working together. They don't understand each other very well, and it's very difficult where people are not really speaking to each other. It's very difficult to bring in enough development to satisfy communities. So I think the whole issue of cohesion is the one thing that we need to drive first and foremost, so that we can be able to, because in the instances where I went to meet with the communities, and I'm saying it very honestly in front of them, in front of everyone, people were even asking me, why don't you take us to another place and take this ones to another place, because we don't want to stay together. But what I saw January is there is hope, especially the young people, because they have graduated from this project. And one thing that was also that I have observed is that there is a realization that in spite of the fact that they want to develop the indigenous languages, is that they realize that English is the language of the market, and I wish you could hear how beautifully these young people could articulate themselves in English. So I think there is hope that the next generation, we will be able to build a better community, sense of community within that communities.
Let's develop this theme a little bit more. There's a tweet from someone who calls himself Aluta Continua, who says, Black Kimberlites are more fluent in Afrikaans and disregard English. How will they contribute to corporate South Africa? Your thoughts? It's an interesting one.
I think that person is really just articulating his own feelings. Because I must say that my experience of the many years that I'm from Uppington, and Uppington people, we generally speak Afrikaans. But my experience in the province is that people are more than willing, and they are very articulate in up to 4 languages in this province. So Afrikaans, yes, because soos ons in Afrikaans, dit is die omgangstaal. We generally relate to each other in Afrikaans, but English is very, especially in Kimberley, it is very prevalent.
You spoke about social cohesion in your speech yesterday as well, and often we talk about social cohesion when we're having a national debate, and we easily go to black and white. But one thing that I've experienced in this country is that there's tensions between blacks and coloreds that's not often talked about and acknowledged. And I just wonder, particularly with the kind of mix that you have in this province, is that something that comes to the fore? Is that something that's discussed beyond the normal just black and white issues?
We speak about the national question in many instances, but I think I want MEC Shushu maybe to respond to that one.
All right, let me see.
No, of course, South African society was divided and socialized differently. So it's natural that people who have been socialized and almost kept from one another, there will be challenges. But I think those are not challenges that manifest in a way that doesn't result in the necessary social cohesion. I think within the context of our province, we are managing the diversity in the province quite well. That is why you see the community of the Kung and the Kwe and all other indigenous communities have got proper recognition in the province. We're developing even languages we were providing in our schools, for example, in Kubus, Nama, which is one of the languages we need just to revitalize the provision of the language in the schools. So generally, yes, we're not different to the rest of South Africa, given our past, but we think that our diversity is managed much more easily.
So blacks and coloreds are getting along in Northern Cape?
Yes, we would say that.
Okay.
They must get along. They must get along.
Okay. All right, so let's go to Victor, is this Bambani? Table 16.
Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Good morning, my honorables. To start off with, I would like to say thank you to the Premier. As the saying goes, a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. You might know why I'm saying that. In fact, we are the retrenchees of Kimberley for the last 10 years. So we saw it first that we group ourselves. Remember last year when Dr. Nwako Ramatlodi encouraged us to organize ourselves. So we organized ourselves and we decided to name our cooperatives under our former leaders. As we have heard, Victor Bambani, ex-mine workers and associate memorial cooperatives. Whilst we are having another one coming, the Zik Ndoro, ex-mine workers and associates memorial cooperatives. Yeah, what we are saying, it was in fact a comment, Peter, that thanks for the Premier for awarding us to be part of this. So as it is, our request is in fact simple, that now we are here. We are living there in the township. We see everyday poverty facing us. The comment is, Premier, work with us. We are here to take the poverty head on. So by so saying, I've just heard MEC Norman Jack telling us about the skills development. No, Comrade Norman, we are there. Again, work with us. That was simply what we want to say to your cabinet, Comrade Premier. Thank you.
Okay. So you have citizens that want to join hands with you and march forward. I just want to ask again, you know, with this whole education and developing new areas for the economy, you've got mining, you've got agriculture, they're vulnerable. So you almost have to start thinking about new ways of doing things. Maybe it's developing beneficiation in mining and sort of agro-processing and all kinds of things. Manufacturing didn't get a huge amount of time in your speech, but I guess this is an area you really have to think about. But also the knowledge economy. is something that we can develop on the continent. We've got great people, great minds, great potential. Is that something that as a province you're saying, beyond mining, beyond agriculture, we've got this? How can we develop this and create knowledge-based economies?
Thanks, Peter. Fortunately, what you are raising now is what was reported to us by SOPA University a few weeks ago, where they said they are one of the first universities that are venturing into knowledge economy in collaboration with some other continental universities. And I strongly believe, as you are rightly saying, there should be a shift from mining and agriculture in the Northern Cape and start to venture into other areas. And our university is central in as far as that is concerned. But on top of that, it is what was said by the other speaker when he was really making a comment on the issue of cooperatives that they have established. Look, one of our major concerns is that there's input and there's further development of SMMEs, but ultimately they don't have the market to sell their products. That is the change that we want to complete now. For us, whilst we are giving some resources to develop, we need also to simultaneously look at where their product is going to end. And that will be assisting the entire process. If you look at, again, the 9-point plan, when it speaks about the industrial policy action plan, it speaks about the 100 industrialists program. From our province, there's only one person really, or one company that moved to the ultimate 100. 100, but they are, for this year, they are looking at 40. We are not so sure if that particular company is going to make it. What we then said, let DTI National come into our province, we'll assist them as economic development to ensure that we identify potential farmers who couldn't make the threshold of 1 million rand turnover. We'll reduce that threshold to 250,000 in order for us to develop them over time so that after 3 years they can qualify to be part of the 100 industrialists that we are going to establish, which will also be part of them will be part of the manufacturing sector. And I believe we can have a response to our people in as far as that is concerned.
All right. This province is home to the square kilometre array. Has this project changed the game for the Northern Cape? Are we seeing scientists being developed at SOPA University? And are we seeing people in other parts of the country being encouraged to come to the Northern Cape, as opposed to traditionally they grow up here and they end up in other parts of the country? Has it been a game changer, Premier?
It should be. Let me put it like that. One thing that is happening is that at SOPA University, for the first time in history, you are getting what they call, is it data studies or data science, data studies. And that is actually aimed at making sure we develop some skilled people that can be able to assist or to work with the SKA, because this is about data that are being collected over years and also the processing of data and so on. So that is one thing that is happening within the province. Secondly, around the square kilometre array, we started to develop different programs and projects. One being that the schools in that area are now like having computer laboratories. They are actually teaching ICT and other related subjects to make sure that we also develop a skills base from where we can get. At the current moment, the scientists that you find at SKA, you will find, but it's also very exciting that you find young people from Limpopo, young people from the Northwest or other provinces that actually are, if you get there, you will see this little girl, and you will not even begin to think that this is a scientist, this is the person that will take you through the whole process at SK and so on. So I think this is not only a South African venture, this is not only a Northern Cape venture, this is an African and a world venture. So it's actually, what is happening is that I went to SKA some few times, and I have seen a 24-year-old stand up having a PhD and working for SKA, a young lady making a difference. So I think if we begin to think narrow Northern Cape, SKA will not actually serve its purpose. But for South Africa, it is something exciting, and I think that can actually inspire the young people of the Northern Cape if they see young people from South Africa, how they've taken interest in the SKA.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get more of your questions from the audience here, also on Twitter, and also maybe get a response from the Premier about cabinet reshuffles, filling of positions. We'll find out after this.